Just take shade. Then right on top there.
Present to everyone.
Yeah. You are now live. So I'll follow from my office. Thank you.
Morning, ladies and gents. Welcome to this class. I hope the people tuned in on the streaming will receive a picture today. Last time around, I managed to get it wrong around here. So they heard nothing, saw nothing. Blank screen. So I will return to that lecture and briefly go through the monopolistic competition again. Ladies and gents, I also got feedback from the tutors that people don't understand the terminology I use. They say I speak too high, use terms I haven't seen before. Got the feedback in the first tutorial that people couldn't do the tutorial. And I don't know what the problem is, but the textbook is sort of central in doing your studies. So ladies and gents, please read the textbook. I probably preach to a converted now, but you are in class and you've read the textbook before. So remember, this week there's a compulsory tutorial again. Tutorial format, a few multiple choice questions, and I think two descriptive questions. All of it directly from the textbook. So ladies and gents, take some time out and read it. Okay, enough of that. Just the lecture schedule, some changes, forced changes to a certain extent. We are at monopolistic competition again today. I will not do everything in detail. I want to finish this. Tomorrow, then oligopoly. Oligopoly at 4 o'clock and probably some lab session. I want everybody in class, even while it's used for lecturing purposes, there will be some lab session added to that. Thursday, no class, because I've tied up in a meeting. Next week, Tuesday, then the last formal class, and will probably be only a selection from the labor market, not the whole chapter on the labor market, and some feedback on the current labor statistics for South Africa, as in the fourth quarter of last year. Labor statistics is only published on a quarterly basis. And then next week, Wednesday, the lab session again, assessment, and I hope and pray for a better average than 33%. The format will be as for the first test. Multiple choice questions, select the correct alternative. Okay, for the benefit of those at home, looking at the streaming, and for the rest of the class as well, see this then as a revision. The last, while I'm talking about revision, the last Thursday before the end of the semester, at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, there will be a question and answer session in the education building. Anybody that wants to ask questions, feel free to come and ask. I think this thing's going down now. Not going to fail. Okay, can you hear now? Thanks, let's carry on. Now we go to monopolistic competition again. Just to highlight, again, there's some properties. The main property is that we've got product differentiation. Differentiation, ladies and gents, means you can distinguish between different products for some other characteristic that differs, make a product unique. Like Coca-Cola versus Pepsi, the content of a bottle is the same, purely the label distinguish or differentiate the product. And because you can differentiate products, you can charge different prices. Monopolistic competition can be coined as a monopoly for your specific product, because your product is different to that of your competitors with similar style products. You can determine the output and the price, and the main thing is on the advertising, branding, and quality. I'm not going to ask you that question again. Let's skip over this again, and we ask the question, large number of firms, remember that's I say as you can act as a monopoly because you can differentiate your product, but there's a lot of competitors in the market. You've got a small market share, got limited pricing power, therefore no firm pays attention to the action of others. This is going to change as soon as we move to oligopoly, the next market form. There you have to take care or take note of your competitors' actions. Your actions does not affect your competitors' actions. You cannot collude with competitors. In the oligopoly, we want to follow collusion, even while it's illegal, happens in many economies with this market form. Product differentiation, I've already referred to. Slight differences, minor differences, or you want to create the perception in the mind of your potential client that your product is different to that of your competitor. Listen carefully. You want to create the perception that your product is different to those of your competitors. Now, ladies and gents, you can start thinking about products you use. You are brand orientated. Am I right? Who's going to drink Pepsi if they can't find a Coke? Who's drinking Coke? Nobody. A gentleman, there's one person that's honest. A gentleman, are you going to drink a different type of beer if you normally drink Castle, for instance? I rest my case. You are convinced, even while, like petrol, who's driving on BP petrol only in the Western Cape? Or Sasol? Sasol petrol in the Western Cape doesn't come from Sasolburg. It comes from a refinery down at Milnerton. All the petrol is exactly the same. They add a little bit of colorant, etc. It comes from one factory. Or they import it from Singapore and put it in a container ship, download it, offload it in Cape Town, into the same huge tanks with Chevron pumps, whatever they refined into. The same tank, different companies use the same product. Perception in your mind that the product is different because of a trademark on the lamppost in front of petrol station. Because you have less competitors with a negative or less users, with a negative sloping demand curve, you can increase the price. You've got some control. Not full control like in a monopolist case, but you've got some control over the price of the product. Now let's skip on. I already did this sample of the haircuts for the females. I asked the gentleman for the beer and everybody for Coke, and now the females for haircuts. It reminds me of a boxing of early Sunday morning. Took them 5 years to set up this fight, they say. 5 years. Work up the hype so that the two competitors earn between them $300 million. So it was even worthwhile losing because you're still going to get about $140 or $150 million. So was it a better box fight than other box fights? I don't know. I haven't done. It's too early in the morning for me to watch in any case. But the haircut idea, my wife is totally convinced that the haircut cut at, argument's sake, $40 in Kleinmond, where we stay, is of an inferior quality than the $160 haircut you can get in Stellenbosch. Because the chairs in Stellenbosch vibrates and give her a nice coffee. It remains scissors and a comb, and they sort of do the job. But what about the stylist? Product differentiation because you think you've got a better product. You can market your own services for doing exactly the same thing the person next door does. This is the nature of monopolistic competition. You can differentiate because of branding or advertising or whatever. This is the realistic market format we've got. So quality is important. And is focused on a lot of stuff, but not the real properties of a product. You've got a crazy design for a new chair, therefore it still does exactly the same thing. People sit on it. But because it's got a strange design, now it's better than other product. Reliability. I feared this morning for this thing. I managed to get a Duracell battery from a different piece of equipment, and now we can carry on. People don't buy cheaper batteries because they anticipate it's not going to be as reliable as a more expensive battery. Trade-off between price and quality. Is a more expensive product necessarily better than a cheaper one? That's the question you have to ask. But people think a more expensive product is better than a cheaper one. Brings me back to Edgar's and its red hanger sale. People think they get good quality. Get a perception, because it's Edgar's, a brand name, a store. They've got a sale. I call it the red hanger sale. And you think it's stuff that is marked down. But they ship in those items from the factory and ship it out after the sale ended. It is marked in the factory as 110 Rand slash through, now 70 only. Real price, $20, 20 Rand. Nobody in his right mind in business to make a profit will willingly make a loss just to attract customers to the store. So if price and quality is a trade-off, if you want to reduce the price, get people in the store, then the quality is probably going to be slightly lower. How long does a normal appliance in the kitchens last? 1 month longer than the warranty period. Years ago, I spoke to a lady this weekend. She's still using in her kitchen a stove she bought the day they were married, and that is 48 years ago. She's still using the same stove. Nowadays, you buy the stove, 3-year guarantee, 3.5 years down the line, you buy a new stove. D5 fridges were manufactured, and they advised this must last for a lifetime. Nowadays, it's produced, we were going to plan a new model in 3 years' time, so let's give a 2.5-year guarantee, because then people will be back in the store buying a new fridge. Quality and price, a trade-off. Differentiated products. Think about it. Ladies and gents, if you enter a store again, think about people fooling you to believe one product is better than another. Just look at the origin. From what factory does it come? And you'll probably realize it's the same factory producing different products, and the only real differentiation is the label on the product or the packaging of a product. The rest is exactly the same. It's like Woolies and the predator-friendly meat from nowadays onwards. Can a sheep really learn to trust a jackal? That's a thing we have to on. But there's pressure groups that forces Woolies to say, this is the way we're going to do business now. So if you can give a certificate, we don't kill jackal on a farm, then we'll buy your sheep. Otherwise, no go. So ladies and gents, as I've stated last week, the only real problem is, what is the long-run equilibrium? Do we make economic profit or zero economic profit, or do we still make some economic profit? The rest is sort of comparable. Prices are higher than the perfect competition environment, but not necessarily as high as monopoly. The output is exactly the same way they determine that, where your last unit's cost of production is equal to the last unit's price, marginal revenue that you can derive from. The extra income must equal the extra cost of producing the last item. In the short run, everybody can make some economic profit. The level will differ. And the big difference between this one, where you're a price taker, that means a horizontal demand curve for your product, versus price setters, a negative sloping demand curve for your product. Just to reiterate, remember, this is the individual perfect competitor faces a horizontal demand curve. The market has a normal negative sloping demand curve. And the market price will be where the market supply equals the market demand, that intersection. So looking at the cost structure of a monopolistic competitor, you've got the demand curve, and we've highlighted in the monopoly the marginal revenue curve. That slope is twice as steep as the demand curves. And we have marginal revenue equals marginal cost. Just think about the previous slide. Where's the optimum level of production? Where the cost of a last unit, red line, equals the income received from the last unit. That is your profit maximizing output. The price is red from the demand curve. Remember, in the perfect competition market, the demand curve was a horizontal line running through that point. So your average cost is low, average price is high. In between, you make economic profit. Only question is, how big will this profit be? Will it last in the long run, yes or no? Just remember, I said the cost structure, this red and blue line over here, is given. It's the same for every producer, irrespective of a market structure in which you operate. The only thing that is variable between the market structures is the form of your demand and marginal revenue curve. In the monopoly, slightly steeper probably, demand and marginal revenue curves. In the perfect competition, horizontal line, where demand equals marginal revenue equals average revenue equals price. Therefore, a price taker versus a price setter. You set the price by looking at where marginal cost equals marginal revenue. From there you reach horizontally, vertically upwards to your demand curve. Price is always determined on your demand curve, ladies and gents. Any questions on that? Looks just like the monopoly. There's slopes of lines that can produce a different answer. The only difference is, this is for a single monopolistic competitor, remembering there's a hell of a lot of other competitors as well, facing exactly the same demand and supply curves, those. The cost structures can differ between different competitors. So you make a profit because your average total cost, that one, is bigger, your price is bigger than your average total cost. So if your cost structure or that demand curves shift downwards, you can start making a loss at the same output level. If that blue line and this orange line moves downwards, then this intersection point can come down. That can even be below the marginal cost. And then you make an economic loss. So, ladies and gents, if this is prescribed for next week Wednesday's class, I will announce what we do for next week Wednesday by tomorrow afternoon's lecture at 10 to 5. Then remember to remember the rules in your head. Marginal cost equals marginal revenue. If I ask a question like this with a little graph, just search for that point and work vertically to your demand curve. If the price is below the average total cost, you make a loss. If it's above, you make a profit. So the economic loss happens in this case. I said vertically MC equals MR. But now the average total cost, the cost of producing a unit, is higher than the price I receive in the market. That is possible. Not all competitors in a monopolistic competition faces the same cost structure. You face the same demand structure in the economy, but not the same cost structure. And there's your exercise that we did last week. I asked, what quantity does my bike produce and what is the price? Rule in your head. MC equals MR. Determines the quantity. The price is 250, quantity is 100. Price is, difficulty is 250, yes. Use so that the steering people can have a look at price. The quantity is over here, the intersection there. Price is red from the demand curve over there. Cost from the average total curve. So the cost is 300 rands per mountain bike. The price is 250. The loss, 50 times 100 is 5,000. So it's the economic loss that is experienced by this company, Mike's Bike, by producing. What happens in the long run? This case, ladies and gents, that's a question we're busy asking. In the short run, you can do economic profit or loss. In the long run, zero economic profit, similar to the perfect competition environment, at a higher price and lower quantity than over here, but a lower price and higher quantity compared to the monopolist in general. No barriers to entry, free to enter or leave. The reason for entering a market is the perceived economic profit. Underlying all of these is the idea that you've got perfect knowledge about the market and your competitors. How else will you know that there's economic profit if you haven't got the information that is available to anyone? So you can enter freely and you can exit as well when you make a loss. Underlying to this even more is there's no government that will force you to stay in the industry. If you make a loss purely on economic grounds, you can leave the industry and say, okay, I cannot keep on making a loss. So in the long run, because people can enter, if you make an economic profit, remember, as new competitors enter, there's a smaller and smaller share of a market for you. Let me stress that again. You've got a certain demand for your type of product. There's a lot of competitors. As new people enter the market and their supply, remember you've got a demand curve. Let me draw the demand curve. Here's a graph. The demand curve is negative sloping. As more people enter the market, at every price, supply is going to move to the right. Supply curve will move to the right. That will force down the equilibrium price. So you've got profit. That means your cost of making the last unit is less than the price you receive for the last unit. That's constitute economic profit. At that price, people will say, I know you're making a profit. Now I'm going to take my place in the sun as well. I'm going to enter this market. If there was a supply of 100 units at the price, now new person enter the market, now there's suddenly 110 at the same price. The supply curve moves to the right. I've got the board. Let me quickly draw a graph. Sorry for the streaming people, you can't have a look now. There's your demand curve. And you've got a supply curve. And at that equilibrium position, that price, you're making an economic profit. That's the signal to other potential competitors to enter the market. At every price, you're going to produce more. The market supply will move to the right. At every price, there's now more people in the market. So what happens to your price? Goes down. And the quantity increase. Remember price, quantity. Because you've got free entry and exit, if there's economic profit at the market equilibrium price, more supplies, the supply curve moves to the right, market price comes down, that reduces your economic profit to zero and the higher quantity. Now there's no economic profit, so new entrants will not come into that market anymore. That, ladies and gents, forms the basis of a process of free entry and exit in the market. So in the long run, no economic profit. And as I've highlighted, If you enter, your share of a market reduces. If you want to keep your market share, if you are used to produce at 10 Rand, sell at 15 Rand. And you've got a certain quantity that you can sell. Now suddenly that price comes down. You're not making an economic profit anymore. The price now equals your cost of producing, marginal. How can you manage to increase your market share again? You haven't got a really control over the price in the market. Now you have to start marketing, differentiate your product from other suppliers' products, look at your cost structure. So the marginal revenue comes down. How do you keep that economic profit? But by reducing your marginal cost, or convince people that your product is better than other people's products, so that your share of a market increases and other people are forced out of a market. So ladies and gents, for optimum price in the long run is over here. Marginal revenue equals marginal cost, and the price equals the average cost of making that unit. Equilibrium, where MC equals MR. The price you read from the demand curve. Average cost you read from the ATC curve. And if those two are equal, zero economic profit. Now you can probably realize if your cost structure moves slightly upwards, you start to reverse demand and supply curves, demand and marginal revenue curves, you are going to make a loss. And that means you're out of a market. So how can I create an economic profit again? Given these two, the orange and blue straight lines, I must reduce my cost structure, move it down. Start paying your labor less. Try and get supplies at a cheaper price. Forcing your cost to produce lower and therefore increase economic profit. The most popular one of reducing in a small supplier's case, your cost structure is by the owner not taking a full salary. Remember, part of your normal profit is the remuneration for the entrepreneur. You cut down on that, you can probably increase the size of the market. Look at monopolistic competition versus perfect competition. This section in the textbook follow the section on the oligopoly. So you'll first see the oligopoly is only 3-4 pages and then the comparison. So there's excess capacity normally in a monopolistic competition case. So it's not efficient. And it makes more profit than the perfect competition environment. Less efficient, more profitable in the short run. The difference, the monopolist, perfect competition guy will produce a higher quantity at a lower price. And who benefits from that? The consumer benefits at the end of the day. So the efficient scale of production, ladies and gents, is at that point where average cost of production is as low as possible, minimum point of your average total cost. Now, and this is a property you can remember, the marginal cost curve, go back to chapter 9, always goes through the minimum point of your average total cost curve. Always goes through that point. That is a fixed format. Now, we add the perfect competition environment to the demand curve going through that point. We've got the lowest price, most efficient way of producing in the economy. So the efficient scales over there, that's the excess capacity. If you reduce the price, there's the monopolistic competitor's price, perfect competition's price will be lower. So the perfect competition guy can produce more at a lower scale, at the lowest possible per unit cost. So the monopolistic guy at that point can reduce the cost by reducing the price and move to the right. So the two market forms very close. The only real difference between a monopolistic competitor and a perfect competition guy or supplier is the fact that the nature of the product is not homogeneous anymore. You can differentiate according to properties like packaging, etc. So there's the loss and the markup. And the markup comes down in the perfect competition environment. Perfect competition, so sort of just get that graph and compare it to this one. There's no excess capacity, there's no markup in the perfect environment. Is this perfect monopolistic competition efficient? No. Quick answer. No person that can differentiate according to some other property of his product can call his or her operation efficient. All people in industry, wherever, strives to do one thing and one thing only, and that is to maximize profit. Maximize, from an accounting perspective, profit. From an economic perspective, economic profit. And if you maximize or you generate economic profit, you're not efficient. You can distinguish your product because of some other characteristic, you're not efficient. You can manipulate the market. So inefficient, and you can differentiate because of that. You can make your price higher. And therefore, variety is costing the consumer. Even on the shop floor, I had a look this weekend. In Kleinmond, they upgraded the OK Mini after-hours store type of to a higher quality OK bazaars, and everybody said, "No, this is the only place you're going to buy in Kleinmond now is this new OK Mini market." Look at their good prices. They attracted people because, okay, the group holder said, we will give you some leeway. We will sponsor certain products to get the people into your store. So they sold Nescafe Gold instant coffee at 65 Rand a jar. That's lower than any other store. Everybody rushed there, but it was only for the first hour after opening. When the price skipped back to 129 Rand a jar. That 129 Rand is roughly 30 Rand more expensive than any other store in Kleinmond asking for the same product. People got the impression this is a cheap store and they keep on buying there now. You can go to the super spar and buy much cheaper. Variety is costing you. There was one store, probably not that cheap, but they will lose customers. Now people move between different stores on the perception that I can get it cheaper. So the more important thing is in the monopolistic competition environment, and I think you start realizing it's nothing to do with cost structures and prices. It's how can I distinguish my product from my competitors? What do I do to innovation and product development? So if you go to any big supplier of brand names, they've got a huge division in their business that look at product development and innovation. Continuous basis to try and distinguish your product from the competitors. To keep making an economic profit, you must be in a state of continuous product development. If you refrain from doing this, you're going to close your doors. You get that competitive edge. I am better than my competitor. Now, ladies and gents, I think this can imitate the innovation. Now, years ago, We called the Japanese economy, that was when I sat on those benches, we called the Japanese economy the copycats of the world. United States, Germany developed the product, and then the Japanese took it and manufactured it at a fraction of a cost. Now the Chinese are the copycats of the world. They tend to look and manufacture whatever you produce or what you develop at a much cheaper rate. In fact, the world learned from this experience. Hewlett-Packard is not producing a single product in the United States anymore. They produced it in Singapore and then in Japan, now produce it in Taiwan and China. And you can go and have a look. A lot of products is now produced. It's not developed in China, but the production facility was moved there. Now, what's currently happening is the Japanese saw the market gap, and now they move their manufacturing facilities to the United States. They've got higher skilled people, but there's also a large pool of low skilled people closer to their market. So if you buy Toyota Lexus, it was developed, initial idea in Japan, developed and produced in the United States. Biggest market is the United States. So why must they ship the final car from Japan to the United States? Just manufacture it there. Product development. Can you spot the differences? It's quite obvious. Can you spot the content of a product, of a box? Not really, because there's no difference between the content. Just change the packaging. So is it nuut en beter vir die Afrikaanse mense? Is the content really better? We don't know. They probably added some color into it and now it looks different, but does it work better? Think different. Marketing, ladies and gents. Smuggling with my and your heads, that is marketing. Think different, Apple, their slogan. Business is our middle name, IBM. Business is no name for them. Connecting people, Nokia. It's not probably valid anymore. Enjoy Coca-Cola, slogan by Coke. But even these must change over time. You cannot stick. Or somebody will develop a more striking slogan and you will lose market share. Why does Nike and Reebok spend millions of dollars a month advertising their products? Everybody knows it. You want to differentiate. You keep on reminding people my product is different to all the competitors. Keep people getting back to your store and buy the product. I think I've missed a slide. Let me just see. The most interesting slide I did not include. Sorry, ladies and gents. See you tomorrow afternoon, 4 o'clock in the Nielsen. Compulsory attendance. Thanks.